Hi, this is Michael Canellis at Green Tech Media, and when you hear the name Freescale Semiconductor, you probably say, who? Well, Freescale is actually the old Motorola semiconductor, and they're the leader right now in chips for the automotive industry. And they've got a whole new line of products coming out to improve gas mileage as well as safety. We're going to go talk to Henri Richard, who runs sales.
We are really so deeply ingrained in people's life that I'd like just to give you, a few facts. Like, when you start your car, probably 2 times out of 3, it's probably thanks to a Freescale microprocessor in your ECU, electronic control units. For those of us that don't know this, when you place a phone call, most of the time it's going to be routed by a wireless base station that contains either our control processor, our digital signal processor, or our RF chip, or all 3 of them. The amount of intelligence that you can put in the electronics around an internal combustion engine and diminishing its power, its power consumption relative to the output is almost unlimited. I mean, the more intelligence you're putting, the more efficiency you're going to get. Yeah, so we started actually an interesting program with McLaren Electronics. So people usually know the McLaren race team. But behind that enterprise, there is a company called McLaren Electronics, which actually has a partnership with Freescale, also with Microsoft and others, that is focused on leading-edge electronics for motor racing, but with, of course, application into everyday vehicles. And so we have a project that we're working with them on kinetic energy recovery systems. Without going into too much technical detail, there's really 2 fundamental train of thoughts in KERS. One of them is you store the energy that you're getting from braking in a mechanical way. So you activate a flywheel that stores that kinetic energy. And then the other train of thought is in an electrical way. So you have supercapacitors, and as you're braking, you're basically creating electricity. They're stored, and you can restore them through an electric drivetrain, right? So these two techniques are being developed in parallel. They have both pros and cons, weight, complexity, and so forth. But I think we will see KERS as a standard device entering the market in a fairly big way in the middle of the next decade. If you think about the level of sophistication that exists today in an average car in terms of driver assistance, and what is already available in terms of technology, there's an enormous gap.
Huge gap. It's not much right now.
Yeah, and it's really not a gap that's driven by cost. It's just the fact that car manufacturers are very conservative in nature because of the risks involved with any evolution or modification. One way to improve significantly the safety is to make sure that cars talk to each other, understand their relative velocities, and therefore start to apply brakes or acceleration based on that input. So yes, we will get to a point where you'll have every car will have an IP address, and they will be interconnected, and they will be talking to each other. Today, one of the costs in a car that's been difficult to compress is the wire harness. The fact that you need to have a bunch of wires. You'd be amazed. Yeah. Miles of wires around the car connecting all the devices. First, it's a negative impact on the environment because it's copper and plastics and all kind of stuff, and it's weight. Yeah, weight. So it uses energy, and it's expensive to install, and so forth. So the car of the future will really be a network of microcontrollers, sensors, and analog devices all stitched together on a network, and so you'll have a bus, right? So one very simple, so to speak, cable, right, that goes around the car, but that doesn't need to be multiple wires with plus 12 volt and a ground and the signals, and just a simple bus all around your car. And then every station, whether it's your window lift or your radio or your seat warmer or whatever it is basically a station with a small networking connection and a local microcontrollers. And so you'll get to, today in a high-end car, you probably have 70, 80 microcontrollers. You'll probably go to the point where you'll have hundreds of them. They'll be very simple, but you'll have hundreds of them. If you're focused on automotive vehicles and in particular in electric and hybrid vehicles, you got to think about the other side of the equation, which is, okay, it's great to have an electric car, but where do I plug it in, and how can I do that efficiently? And it's a little more complex than most people can understand at first. Let me give you an example. you get home with your electric car, you plug it in for recharge, but you have a pipe. Essentially, people don't think of it that way, but what you have is you have a pipe coming into your house, and there's only so many electrons that can come through that pipe. You can easily get to a situation where you need the car to be charged by 6 a.m. the next morning because you need to leave for office or whatever you need to do, and that becomes a conflict with the washing machine or the air conditioning, right?
Right.
And so suddenly you realize, wow, this unintelligent distribution of electricity is just not possible anymore in our new world. You're going to have a lot more intelligence built, not only at the point where the electricity is coming into your house, which is basically the control point, but also in every one of the devices that are pulling electricity from that control point. In the automotive space, the rate of innovation that's driven by electronics is really gated by the conservatism of the industry and the fact that lives are in danger and so forth, and so you need to be very cautious in how you implement new technologies. In the smart grid area, there's none of that comes into play, and so because the ROI models are actually very, very exciting and positive in all cases, the rate of adoption is going to be extraordinarily quick. I think that yes, we have an antiquated grid around the world, but I think that you're going to see in the next 10 years a tremendous change, and some countries will be entirely intelligent from a grid perspective within that time frame, probably 10 years. I still am very bullish about the semiconductor industry. We have our cycles that come up and down, but overall, on a long-term basis, this market's growing. There's plenty of opportunity for us to grow thanks to the need for greater efficiency, more health and safety, more connectivity, and the world is not going to go green without semiconductors helping it. So, all in all, even though 2009 is a tough year, and will continue to be tough, I'm not expecting any sort of fast recovery. I believe that 2010 will be a very positive year for the industry, and certainly going into 2011, I'm pretty bullish.